Welcome to 1 Minute to Midnight. I'm Wilfred Cunningham. Donald Trump is the Republican Party nominee for the 2016 United States presidential election. But even less than a year ago, it seems most analysts doubted Trump's ability to even make it into the final 3 Republican candidates. That may have partly been due to confusion about Trump's real intentions. Many believed at first that his candidacy was a publicity stunt, or a token gesture. Donald John Trump was born on the 14th of June 1946 in Queens, in New York City. He was the 4th of 5 children born into a relatively wealthy family. Trump's grandfather Friedrich, later Frederick, built his fortune by establishing service businesses such as inns, restaurants, and brothels to serve the demand of gold prospectors in Yukon Territory in western Canada. After the Yukon Gold Rush, Frederick Trump moved to New York with his family and began to build a modest real estate portfolio, but was hindered by the outbreak of the First World War and died suddenly from influenza in 1918. His son, also Frederick but usually called Fred, Donald Trump's father, was 13 at the time of his own father's death. Fred Trump established Elizabeth Trump & Son with his mother in 1923, and the company initially built and sold small individual houses before eventually moving on to larger projects. During and after the Second World War, they built thousands of apartments and other buildings mainly in the less wealthy boroughs of Brooklyn and Queens in New York, and also in Staten Island, becoming a very large company by the time Donald Trump joined in 1968, after graduating from the Wharton School of Finance and Commerce at the University of Pennsylvania, with a degree in economics. By 1973, Donald Trump was the president of the company, now known as the Trump Organization, having reportedly been given control in 1971, and he had started to make a name in his own right as a young up-and-coming real estate businessman in Manhattan. However, his first appearance in the New York Times was less than favorable. The Department of Justice had brought a suit in federal court accusing both Trump and his father of refusing to rent their properties to people based on their race. The matter was settled out of court after the company agreed to cooperate with the New York Urban League in placing rental applicants. Allegations of racist policies or affiliations in both Trump's businesses and his political campaigning have dogged him periodically. None, however, have seemingly damaged his business or political reputation greatly, if at all. By the time he was 30, Trump was worth an estimated $200 million, and the Trump Organization expanded greatly during the 1980s, especially with the completion of the 58-story Trump Tower in 1983. During this time, Trump gained notoriety for his wealth and outspoken nature, and this continued to grow during the early 1990s, which are often viewed by analysts as a more difficult period for him, with financial difficulties somewhat alleviated by his father's inheritance that was divided amongst Trump's siblings and himself. According to the book, The Self-Made Myth, The Truth About How Government Helps Individuals and Businesses Succeed, by Brian Miller and Mike Lapham, in 1990, due to excessive leveraging, the Trump Organization revealed that it was $5 billion in debt, or up to $8.8 billion by some estimates, with $1 billion personally guaranteed by Trump himself. The survival of the company was made possible only by a bailout pact agreed upon in August of that same year by some 70 banks, allowing Trump to defer on nearly $1 billion in debt, as well as to take out second and third mortgages on almost all of his properties.
With that record, why should we trust you to run the nation's business?
Because I have used the laws of this country, just like the greatest people that you read about every day in business have used the laws of this country, the chapter laws, to do a great job for my company, for myself, for my employees, for my family, etc. I have never gone bankrupt, by the way. I have never.
Of the 4 times one of Trump's businesses has faced bankruptcy, only the first time in 1991 threatened his personal wealth, but the last time, in 2009, did cost investors an estimated $1 billion. From 2004, Trump hosted and produced the reality TV show The Apprentice, which brought him further fame, particularly outside of the US.
I thrive on energy. This isn't a game. I'm not playing games. Who will succeed? Who will fail? And who will be the apprentice?
Frequently mentioned in popular culture, Donald Trump's name has become a benchmark of personal wealth, and he has been able to sell a number of financial guidance and personal development books, such as The Art of the Deal, due to the respect credited to him for his business acumen. Trump has never held elected office, although he did try to win the presidential nomination of the Reform Party, a fringe conservative party, in 2000. By many accounts, Trump was set to become the nominee, but ultimately withdrew from the race, citing fracturing within the party. He notably clashed with Pat Buchanan and David Duke, who he later described as a neo-Nazi and a Klansman, respectively. Perhaps not being elected to public office is part of Trump's appeal. After announcing his candidacy for the US presidency on the 16th of June 2016, he certainly made the point that he wasn't part of an established and incestuous political class. Although early in the race most analysts deemed this as a weakness, now Trump has positioned himself as a political outsider, and as being rich enough to be above the desire to abuse his position for his own gain. This appeal is similar to the arguments for traditional monarchy, which at least in some forms aim to create a ruler above the usual political fray and special interests. But unlike that, Donald Trump has now defied the expectations of both journalists and his rivals, and won the Republican Party primaries to become the party's nominee, garnering the most votes ever in a Republican primary. Trump largely self-funded his primary campaign, but did so almost entirely with a loan, meaning that he stands to make the money he fronted for his own campaign back at some point, if he receives donations from elsewhere. Despite his claims of self-funding, it should be noted that 34% of his campaign's funds came from other contributions, mainly small donations. However, compared to his primary rivals, Trump spent very little money in campaign advertising because he was able to organically reach a huge audience thanks to intense media interest. After becoming the presumptive nominee, Trump's campaign announced it would seek donations for the presidential election and would not self-fund, which may undermine his earlier arguments about being free from special interest groups or from making backroom deals with groups for their financial support. Trump also is obliged to go to trial to face off a class action lawsuit against him and the now defunct Trump University, one of 3 lawsuits that accuse Trump University of defrauding students. The trial is due to take place after the election, but before inauguration, meaning that if Trump wins the election, he will be the US's first president-elect to take to the witness stand to defend against a class action lawsuit. But then he would also be the first president to not have previously held public office. As of the beginning of June 2016, USA Today reports at least 50 civil lawsuits remaining open involving Trump and his businesses, a number that might be expected for a businessman with assets as numerous as Trump, but could still cause him timetabling problems during his campaign and potential presidency. Trump is standing on a broadly conservative platform, but has described himself as politically flexible. He has donated to both Republican and Democratic politicians, campaigns, and foundations, and has in the past donated to his current rival for the presidency, Hillary Clinton. Trump was reportedly friends with her husband, Bill Clinton, the US president from the beginning of 1993 to the beginning of 2001, and both Bill and Hillary Clinton attended Trump's wedding to his third wife in 2005. His political stance now is seen by many as somewhat radical or extreme, although political philosopher Noam Chomsky has described him as not very different from the other Republican candidates. Trump has promised to tackle illegal immigration in the US and build or expand a large border wall along much of the US-Mexico border, to repeal President Obama's Affordable Care Act, and to oversee tough renegotiations of US-Chinese trade deals. He is seen as a populist politician, but many of his views and the details of his proposed policies are difficult to pin down due to his hyperbolic and improvisational style of oration and tendency of his to seemingly contradict previous statements.
I want to bring up something that happened on this show on Tuesday. Donald Trump apparently contradicting himself when he joined both us and our friends over at ABC by phone.
This is what happened. He talked to ABC first before their show, and they had asked him about that advertisement that showed women quoting things, actual quotes of Mr. Trump. So here's what he said when asked about that ad.
Have you seen that, and what did you make of it?
Well, you know, I have seen it, and it was a Romney deal.
Okay, just a couple of minutes later, he appeared live on this show. Here's what he had to say.
Thing to say.
I have not seen the ad, so I would have to see it. I've heard about the ad, but I have not seen the ad.
Trump was first dismissed as unelectable, and then as divisive. But with an opponent who may divide her party supporters as much as he, Trump now seems more able than ever to secure the White House. So, until next time, goodbye, and try to remain calm.